Well, I think that for all the negatives involved in making a sequel, you have positives. Now, one of the positives is if you can take that initial programming that the audience has from the other film and then do little twists and turns on it and like you said, play against their expectation of what's going to happen. If it's done in a not hostile way to the audience, then they realize that there's a little bit of fun involved, and that the film is having a little bit of fun with them, but it makes them participants. It shows that the filmmakers assume a certain knowledge on their part. What I try to do within Aliens, with the various scenes that you mentioned, is make the scenes so that they functioned if you had never seen the first film. They didn't seem like something coming out of nowhere if you hadn't seen the first movie, but so that they had a second level resonance for the people that had seen the first film. I think it goes back to that idea of the film being more of a participation experience as opposed to a passive experience, and that's one of the great advantages of doing a sequel if you can pull it off.
Presumably one of the major problems is coming up with an explanation of why Ripley would go back would go back in the first place, and this you got around by establishing the whole military motif.
Right.
They're going back because they're going to kick ass, basically.
If you think about it, from a story standpoint, how is the audience going to relate to this person if they put themselves needlessly into jeopardy again, when any sensible thinking person would not go back anywhere near the damn alien if they had a choice? So I tried to approach that from a number of different questions. I mean, one way of doing it would have had her ship drift back to the planet and she's back to. I mean, that's not what the story was about. But I mean, I think there's a couple of things going on. Sure, they offer her a job, but that's not a good enough reason. They offer to protect her. That helps. They're going to give her a bunch of Marines, and so she feels relatively secure in going back. But the real reason is the cathartic psychological reason. There has to be an inner motivation that even if people don't understand it, I mean, even if people disagree with it and say, well, that wouldn't be enough for me, they at least can see a motivation for her to do that. In a way, it goes back to this kind of combat experience that people who've been in high-stress situations undergo, and it's a fairly well understood bit of human psychology, which is when you come that close to death, whatever it is, if it's a car accident or whether you're in combat, you tend to fixate on that moment in your life and just relive it over and over. And what showed up in Vietnam was that people who were there for a year would go back, even though it was the worst thing that ever happened to them.
Ron Cobb, who of course is one of your principal designers on the film, said that in the early stages you were very consciously making a Vietnam War movie in outer space.
As an element. But to me, the whole Vietnam experience was almost science fictional, in the sense that it was the first real high-tech war that was waged against an extremely low-tech enemy and lost, which to me is a very strange thing. It showed how technology didn't work, and there's an aspect of that in this film. It's like, why are we losing?
One of the problems that must have hit you at the beginning of this project was on Alien, they spent all this time and effort and trouble and money developing one alien. We're doing a movie with a whole planet full of them.
Right.
I presume there must have been some concern on your part that you were going to be able to get somebody who could pull that off.
Yeah, there was a lot of concern in that regard. In fact, the studio was very, very leery that we could pull it off, and I promised them on a stack of Bibles, so to speak, that I would do it all with 6 suits, and we did. I mean, there are only 6 in one shot at one time. It's only editorially that you believe you're seeing more than that, because they just keep coming at you from different angles. It's the same 6 guys,
Like the Western where they had 6 cows.
You got it. I mean, Roger Corman once said that he'd filmed the fall of the Roman Empire with 5 extras in a bush. I believe he did it too. I never saw the movie, but anyway, that was the principle. But the point is that it does take all your every ounce of skill of your skill, meaning my skill as a director and the people working for me, the cameraman and the special effects people and so on, to make those very quick cuts count as much as possible, make them as believable as possible. And also what I tried to do was make the aliens interesting from a dynamic standpoint, and the way they moved. We did a lot of experimentation with different ways of moving them. You know, hanging them on wires and shooting them at different speeds and turning sets upside down and sideways and you know, turning the camera upside down, and just every trick in the book to give them this weird sort of dynamic, unhuman type of motion. And you know, I mean, I think that you're basically just being bombarded with so much imagery that it's you have to just kind of give up and say, all right, fine, they're aliens. You know, yeah. They're not guys in suits.
Yeah.
Well, once again, I went more for motion as opposed to design. We kept the design more or less the same as what H.R. Giger designed for the one alien that they had in Alien, the full-sized adult version, of which we, you know, had many. We spent most of our R&D time on motion, because I thought that quick blurring lizard-like or insect-like leap was more important than the physical sculptural design of the suit. And I think that's a mistake that a lot of makeup and prosthetics people make when they're dealing with this sort of thing, is that they lavish all their attention on the sculptural detail, the surface texture, etc. of the suit, and they fail to realize that people need very few pixels of information to identify a human figure, and most of that identification is through motion. You know, the way we walk. The way we walk is so ingrained in us mentally that you can see it just like that. So what we did was we actually redesigned the suit, made it simpler and less sophisticated, and basically freed it so that it was much more flexible. And then we found people to be inside the suits who were gymnasts and acrobats and that sort of thing. And then we hung them on wires and had them act like lizards. You know, form beyond those sort of smaller aliens, which we called the warriors, in the sense of like warrior ants. There's another form, which is the alien queen, which is a completely unhuman.
Dramatically is a trump card for you. That's still the way for you to give another ending to your movie, in a way. And I presume was also a primary motivator, was that you wanted to present something that hadn't been done before in the first movie. You had the face huggers and the chest bursters, and the warriors were all kind of leftover elements from the first one.
The queen was an opportunity to take a design stance that was beyond the first film, you know, completely new territory, create a new organism, basically. And when we see the queen on her sort of biomechanoid throne with the egg sac and all that, we understand intuitively what she is. I think, you know, we see where the eggs come from. We see her relationship with it and all that, and then we, you know, get to take her out of that environment and have her do other things as well. I had an image of what I wanted this thing to look like, which was obviously, you know, inspired by Giger's approach. H.R. Giger, the Swiss artist and designer. And, you know, I wanted to continue with that design philosophy, but I wanted to give it certain other characteristics in terms of size and speed and grace and certain feminine characteristics that the alien warrior didn't have. So I just sat down and drew a few different versions of it. And actually, the first sort of full sketch that I did of it is pretty remarkably close to what we finally wound up with.
I don't know if this is a coincidence or not, but it seems to be that in Aliens, you kind of begin the film with dream and you end it with a reference to a dream. You have Ripley, who is terrified and can't get the dream out of her mind, and this is really what is the impetus that gets her to go back to the planet.
Right.
And the tagline of the film is, Newt says, as she's being tucked into her hibernation chamber, "Can I dream now?" Dreaming is the essence of humanity, and I was wondering, is there anything in that for you?
I don't know if it's that comment so much as just a personal thing that, you know, I get a lot of imagery from my own dreams, and I find them to be, a cathartic experience and a good inspiration for imagery and for concepts and situations and so on. And I think that's dreams are a shared experience. It's a way for us to all leave this plane and explore around a little bit. And that's what movies do as well, especially in the science fiction context. And a film like Aliens is basically just one long bad dream, if you think about it, and you get to wake up at the end and leave the theater. And I think that's it ties into a lot of primal and subconscious fears that are very universal for people. Fears of tight places, fears of the dark, of water, of fire, of high, I mean, you name it. It's all, a lot of those, sort of Freudian tensions are there in the designs of the creature and the implied threat and all that. It was also a way in this specific film, in Aliens, of unifying the Ripley character and the Newt character. They both have the same nightmare, and that bonds them. It makes them the same person in a way. And watching Aliens is a lot like their experience in the film, which is you going through this long dark tunnel and you come out at the end and you're going to be okay. They can dream again. Their dream landscape is not going to have these creatures in it from that point onward. It's like the idea that Ripley survived the first time, but she didn't survive mentally. Psychologically, she's a basket case. At the end of this film, I think you feel like not only has she survived physically, but she's out of the woods. She's going to be okay. So it's actually a better ending in that sense.